Well, hello and welcome to Misheard Song Lyrics. We're at Season 2, Episode 102, and I'm doing my first ever Joe Jackson misheard song lyric, and that is his song Steppin' Out. The misheard song lyric is, now the mist across the window high a lie. And the correct lyrics is, now the mist across the window hides the lines. So recently I went to a local karaoke bar with my friend Matsy. Now remember, he was on my episode 19, wow, way back when, where he did a misheard song lyric with me on a Bee Gees hit called You Should Be Dancing. Well, the story goes, when we went on our way to the karaoke bar, Matt mentioned to me, hey, I want to sing a Joe Jackson song at this new karaoke place. And serendipity happened with two other karaoke friends who ended up singing other Joe Jackson songs unbeknownst to us. So it ended up being a Joe Jackson rock block. And for those of you who don't know, there are two famous Joe Jacksons, one being the patriarch of the Jackson 5, Michael Jackson family, and the other, which I'm talking about today, is a British singer named Joe Jackson, so not to be confused. So when Matt started singing his Joe Jackson, I thought, oh my God, Steppin' Out. This song, I remember this as a kid as this misheard song lyric, thinking the whole time it's about the sport high a lie. So we're going to talk about the sport, stepping out, a little bit more about the British Joe Jackson that maybe you didn't know about. So let's start with high a lie. So I did some research on the internet, and it's actually a sport involving a bouncing of a ball off a walled space by accelerating it to high speeds with a handheld wicker called a cesta. The internet says it's a variation of Basque pelota, and the term high a lie, coined by Serafin Baroja back in 1875, is also often loosely applied to the fronton, or the open-walled playing area where matches take place. The game, whose name means merry festival in Basque, is also called Zesta Punta, basket tip, in the Basque country. The sport is played in Spain, the southwest of France, and in Latin American countries, and lo and behold, it's also played in my country that I was born in, the Philippines. I guess the high a lie was played in Manila at the Manila High a Lie building, obviously the name of it, and one of the most significant Art Deco buildings in Asia, which was unfortunately torn down back in 2000 by the Manila city government. And then in 1986, high a lie was banned in the Philippines because of problems with some game fixing. So there's some cheaters there here and fixing of games. So however, it was returned to the Philippines in March of 2010, but then in 2011 had a setback where it was briefly shut down in the province of Pangasinan because of its connection to illegal gambling, but then was reopened after court order. So it sounds like it's back. So now you know about high a lie, let's talk about Stepping Out, the song. So it's a song written by Joe Jackson, originally included in his 1982 album called Night and Day. The song inspired Jackson's time while he was living in New York City and was his highest charting single in America. So Joe Jackson actually was born David Ian Joe Jackson. He goes by Joe. Born on August 11th, 1954, and like I mentioned earlier, is an English musician and singer-songwriter. He spent years studying music and playing clubs, and he scored his first hit with his release of Is She Really Going Out With Him in 1979, which, by the way, my other karaoke friend, Eric L, actually can sing very well and sang that night when we had the rock block. It was also followed by a number of new wave singles before he moved into more jazz, pop kind of fusion, and had his top 10 hit in 1982 with Stepping Out, the song we're talking about. He is also associated in the 1980s with what they call the second British invasion of the US, which the original one, of course, was the Beatles, 50s, 60s, Rolling Stones, and the likes. And this second invasion happened in the 80s with Duran Duran and other British pop stars and bands. He also composed classical music. He also has recorded 20 studio albums and received 5 Grammy nominations and a win. We'll go into that in specifics later. So Jackson spent a number of years living in New York City, which served, as it's been written here and there, an inspiration for this 1982 song, Stepping Out. So in a 2018 interview, Jackson said, quote unquote, I don't like New York much these days. It's as if the city and I had a hot love affair, and now we're just friends, but we still have to see each other to remain friends. Today I live in Berlin. The New York I knew in late 81 and 82 is gone, and Jackson currently resides in Berlin, but also owns homes in New York and Portsmouth. So still visits New York but doesn't have that love affair anymore. Jackson was also married to his wife Ruth for 2 years, but the marriage ended in divorce and was later called what he said a disaster. In a 2001 interview with the Irish Independent, Jackson stated that he was in a relationship with a male partner. Good for him. Jackson also previously discussed his bisexuality in his autobiography called A Cure for Gravity. His questioning of potential homosexuality and same-gender affection or attraction was explored in his 1982 single, Real Men. So if you haven't heard it, check it out. It's on the internet. Another did you know, on June 25th, 2019, the New York Times Magazine listed Jackson among hundreds of those whose material was reportedly destroyed in a 2008 Universal fire. Now, for those of you that have been following along all the way up until this episode 102, I did a story or a misheard song lyric on episode 69 on Extreme, and their misheard song lyric from Get the Funk Out. And I mentioned they were part of many other artists. Now, you know, Joe Jackson too, where unfortunately a lot of their songs and materials and everything were destroyed in that fire. Yikes. So let's talk about the song background. The song is about the anticipation and excitement of a drive around the town. How fun is that? I know, like for us here in Oregon, that this is the northwest part of the United States, you know, we had places called the Gut, or where you drive around. And when I was growing up, I was on Broadway in Portland, Oregon, and just drive back and forth to meet people. This is before social media, texting, everything. So you just visually saw people to try to say, hey, cutie, and, you know, drive by and then hopefully connect somewhere to meet up. So the song was kind of that excitement regarding that. And it was released as a single in early August of 82, and it became Jackson's biggest hit in the US, peaking at number 5 in Cashbox magazine and number 6 on the US Billboard Hot 100 chart. It also reached number 4 on Billboard's Adult Contemporary chart and number 7 on Billboard's album Rock Tracks. The tune had this really infectious, you know, sound, where Jackson's second biggest hit on the UK singles chart, where it reached number 6. Only his other song, It's Different for Girls, which reached number 5 in the UK in 1980, did better. And during his 2019 tour of the album Fool, Jackson stated he played all instruments on Stepping Out with the exception of the drummer part, who did nothing but mimic the snare drum. The rest of the drumming was actually done by a drum machine called the Korg KR55 for you music geeks, the original of which Jackson used on the 2019 tour to play the song. Great. So he is also multi-talented in playing all instruments as well. The music video, have you seen it? Go onto YouTube or just put it on Google and you'll find it. I love it. It actually has a great Gatsby feel to it, with Jackson playing at a grand piano in full tuxedo and his hair is slicked back. And there's a couple times where some of the characters here, in one, it's played by a attractive housekeeper pretending she's like a Cinderella figure. She's in the next room, I think, supposedly, where she's trying on, or not trying on, but holding up to her a dress of the the rich lady's dress, and she's like thinking, what if it was me out there? And she's on the bed, and I'm this whole time thinking, oh my gosh, she's gonna be walked in on. This is the anxiety part of me. So watch the video, you can see what happened. But it was actually filmed over one night at the St. Regis Hotel in New York City during the summer of 1982, which makes sense because New York was the impetus of the song, and he loved it then, right? The video used the shorter single version instead of the full album version. So I alluded earlier about Grammy Award recognition and nominations. So let's go into them kind of one at a time. His first nomination happened at the 22nd Annual Grammy Awards back in 1979 with Is She Really Going Out With Him? I love singing that song. Nominated for Best Pop Vocal Performance by a Male, which he actually lost to Billy Joel, which Billy Joel won for his song 52nd Street. Okay, nomination 2 and 3 at the 25th Annual Grammy Awards, where Joe Jackson in 1982 was nominated for Stepping Out. First for Record of the Year, which he lost to Toto for Rosanna, and then for Best Pop Vocal Performance of Male. So he's up again for that same I guess genre that he lost to Billy Joel, but this time lost to Lionel Richie's Truly, Truly in Love with You, Girl, which understandable. That's a good one too. And then his fourth nomination happened at the 26th Annual Grammy Awards in 1983 for Breakdown, nominated for Best Pop Instrumental Performance, which lost to George Benson's Being With You. This is where he starts going into the movie genre. So at the 31st Annual Grammy Awards in 1988, Joe Jackson's Tucker, the Man in His Dream album for the movie Tucker, was nominated for Best Album or Original Instrument Background Score written for a motion picture or television, which he lost to another Brit, I guess, from another band. It's David Byrne of Talking Heads, who won for the movie The Last Emperor. But lo and behold, on his 6th nomination was The Charm. Joe Jackson finally won at the 43rd Annual Grammy Awards in 2000 for Symphony No. 1 for Best Pop Instrumental Album. So perseverance definitely does. And he's talented, right? So that no surprise that he eventually won the much anticipated Grammy Award at the 43rd Annual Grammy Awards. If you have any great suggestions, misheard song like you've been stewing about for years, or you just heard recently that just made you chuckle, send it to our email at misheard, that's MISSHEARD songs@gmail.com. You can also send it to our one of many social media sites at Facebook with the same name, at Twitter, at Instagram. And one of the things also I want to add to you too is, Joe Jackson is one of those where I just love his music and totally forgot about it until someone mentioned it just this last weekend. And then of course 3 people sang his songs. He also kind of reminds me of an Elvis Costello kind of way too with his vocal gymnastics. So I hope you enjoy it. And again, keep singing those songs wrong. Bye.